Hello everyone. When I made this this card, which I posted on my Facebook page a couple of days ago, I did make a video at the same time, but it went on forever. It was over 40 minutes, and I'd made I'd done a process with the butterfly that didn't work out, and I had to stop that, start again, get another butterfly. And so it was just, too much. My iPad wouldn't have had the capacity to save it, I think. But having posted the card on Facebook and Instagram, a few questions have sort of cropped up about it. One, how did I do the background? Two, how did I get this gold frame? Three, what did I do with the butterfly? What was the butterfly? Where did it come from? Lots and lots of questions. So I'm hoping that I can address those questions now. I'm going to make another card, or at least the process towards another card. And hopefully there'll be a few tips along the way, because when you do some of these processes, it makes a normal task quite difficult, in that if you emboss a frame like this, for example, and you get some of the embossing on the back, maybe the glue that you normally have used to stick a plain paper frame on wouldn't work with the embossing. So there's a few little tips and tricks along the way. Okay, right. First thing, this butterfly is called Dreamy Butterfly. It is by Memory Box. It's number 94385. It does not come with a body. When you buy the die, it is just the butterfly, and these lines are actually cut through, so you can thread things through them. You could do all sorts with them. They are fabulous. Memory Box do several dies that are called Dreamy, and they've got these kind of cut lines in them. It's lovely. Okay, let's start with the butterfly and just show what I did to make this butterfly. I'm going to use different colour today. I'm going to use Salty Ocean Distress Oxide. This one was Prize Ribbon. Okay, and I'm going to use the matching Embossing Glaze. Is that what you call it? Yes, it is. Okay, put this on one side. Let's do the butterfly first. I have cut one out already, die cut it, just from regular card. My nails are a bit ingrained with all the ink I've been using recently. So the first thing I'm going to do is to do a little bit of stenciling and a little bit of stamping. I did one wing. This wing, it's got these spots in gold. This side, the wing this side, has got this script stamp in gold. So that's what I'm going to do first of all. So I'll just give it a little swipe with my anti-static tool. And now I'm going to put this over that wing, and I want to try and arrange it so that I've got the whole of the wing with some spots on for once, and I don't want any on the other side. So I think, which side shall I use? Does that work? Doesn't much matter really, I suppose. I think that's got it. Okay, now what I'm going to use is my Emboss It. It's kind of a clear embossing dabber. It's like Versamark. So I'm just going to dab this through the stencil onto my butterfly's wing. I think I can see some coverage there. It must be very difficult for you to see coverage, but I can see some coverage. Taking that off, and I'm going to just get a piece of scrap. I have a drawer full of scrap of things that have gone wrong when I've printed. I've often done silly things like printing dress patterns on both sides of a piece of paper, all that kind of stuff, not noticed what the setting of the printer was. Okay, gold embossing powder. This one is a Wow. It is Wow Metallic Gold Rich Pale. Super fine. Oh my goodness. It's got a whole bunch of titles. Right. Just going to pop this little bit back in the pot. Okay. I'm going to heat this side. I'm just wondering about getting a new heat tool. This one seems to be getting a bit hot. I don't know. Anyway, here we go. Splendid. Right, now I am going to stamp on the other side with this little French script stamp from Indigo Blue. For this, I'm going to use a regular Versamark pad. Okay. And I'm going to stamp. Doesn't really much matter about the angle of it, I don't think. There we go. And once more, I'm going to emboss that with gold. Sweet, isn't it? Isn't that lovely? Absolutely sweet. Let me just put this back in the pot. And we'll heat set this bit. Okay, the next thing I did was to add some colour. This time I'm going to use Salty Ocean, and I'm going to add it with a blending brush all over. Any ink that goes over the top of any embossing can always be wiped away later. If you try and do it while the other ink is still wet, you will take some of that colour away too. So it does actually come off. And once I've done this, I'm going to wipe my mat. Okay. Right. Let's just wipe this little mat. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to try some embossing glaze. Now, this is a translucent glaze, and when it dries, any stamping that's been done underneath it can be seen through. So this embossing should show through the stenciling that I'm going to emboss with that embossing glaze. Can you see? A bit of the blue has come off the top of just with the paper towel. Right, I have got a stencil that I cut with my silhouette portrait, and it's just got a whole host of butterflies, and I'm just going to pop it on kind of anywhere really. And what I'm going to use is my Dab It, what's it called? Emboss It Dabber. Just going to do that. Just going to, over the top, this is a very similar process to what I did on the deep blue one, but I thought I'd just have a change. I don't want two identical cards. Right, we'll take that off, put it onto our piece of scrap, and here I'm going to use my emboss it. I haven't used this one before. There we go. Right, I'll hold this with a pair of tweezers, I think, so I can get over it. Oh, I know what I should have done. I should have heat dried. It's not too bad actually, but I should have heat dried this ink, because this powder wants to stick to some of that that's still a bit wet. Blow it away. I think that's all right. I think we've just about sorted that. That was a mistake on my part. I should have made sure that Distress Oxide ink was dry before I did this embossing on the top. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Right, let's heat set this now. Right, what this embossing glaze does, that clear embossing powder doesn't do, is add some colour. But you can still see through. It has changed the colour somewhat of the gold, but that's fine. The other thing that I did with the other card was my good old faithful embossing wax. And for this, I just went around the edges. Just, to me, it just makes it look like it's kind of finished, a little bit more, you know, a bit more special. Can you see how that's sliding that side compared to that side? You see? It just lifts it. Really does. I must be very grateful for all the lovely comments that I've had from people since I started my Facebook page. I'm really, really delighted. And so many people were being so helpful with my problem when I accidentally deleted my files. Anyway, I can get them back, so it's not a problem. Right, there's the butterfly. Now, as I said before, this butterfly doesn't come with a body, but lots of memory box butterflies do. And I have got quite a lot of memory box butterflies. So I've cut one out here, and you can either do one of two things with this. You can either heat emboss it in the gold, the same, or you could rub it with some embossing glaze. Let's do that this time, because I didn't do that before, but I think it'd be quite a good idea, because it would match then exactly the gold on the edge. Let's just do this. There we go. Quick. And it's done. So there's the middle. All right, that was a quick one. If any of the embossing glaze gets onto the back of that, regular glue would find it rather difficult to grip. Embossing wax it's like well, it is waxy, and it repels a lot of adhesives, but something like a glue dot, a rolled up glue dot, tiny one, would do well to stick that on. Or something like this, if you put it on and allow it just to get a bit tacky first. Okay, the next thing I was asked about was the gold frame, this around the aperture. So I will just show you what I did to do the gold frame. Here I've got a piece of scrap card, and it doesn't matter what card you do, it doesn't have to match what you're doing, because you're going to emboss it, so it'll get covered up anyway. So the first thing to do is to get a couple of dies, that are exactly the same shape. I like to use press cut dies. They've got lots of sets with heaps of different sizes in, and the increments are really quite small. Look at that, it is really quite small. If you wanted a wider frame, you'd choose the next but one large. I'll just show you these. They are marvellous dies. I love them. I've got squares, rectangles, there's my circles. Here are my ovals. You see, I've got 2 from in there, and there's loads of them. So you can have a big frame, whatever. And you can, if I were to put the larger one on instead of that one, of course, I would get a wider frame. So it's absolutely personal choice, but these press cut dies are just, I think they're terrific. I'll just put those away just a minute. Okay. Now, the first thing I would do is to arrange them on a piece of card to cut out and try and get them absolutely the same distance apart all the way round. And to do that, I would make sure they were there in the right place by adding some low tack tape. So just looking all the way round and put it on. And I'm going to put some more on the other side as well. Just checking it's still equidistant all the way around. And the majority of the tape, if I was cutting this as an aperture in somewhere, would be on the wastage. Wherever you put this, put the majority of it on the wastage so that there's less chance of any damage to your card on the bit that it's actually going to show. All right, let's cut out our frame. Here we are. There it is. And there are several ways that you can go about inking this to do your embossing. I know that some people like to get their Versamark and use a brayer to attach the, or to transfer the ink to the frame. You could use a dabber like this and dab round it like that all the way round. Or you could pick up the die cut, place it onto the pad and just tap it round to get some on. Loads of ways. There's no correct way. It's whatever you like doing, whatever works for you. I often do this because you get a really good coverage of ink, but you do get messy fingers. Look at the colour of them already. So it's up to you. Whatever you want to do is absolutely fine. Do it this way, do it that way, do it this way, use a brayer, whatever works for you. It's just no problem at all. I'm going to just do it this way for a minute. Okay. Everything goes onto my mat and it just comes off with a wipe. Right, now I'm going to get my scrap, put on my embossing powder, and for something like this, a frame, a sentiment, whatever, I would always do 2 coats. The first coat would just cover it. The second coat adds more dimension. It makes it sort of more rounded, and the overall finish is just so much nicer. Okay, I'm just going to tip this back in the pot. There we go. Just going to give this a quick wipe. Now, anywhere where you want to do heat embossing, you must make sure that if you're going to direct the heat down, it is obviously a heat-proof surface. What I'm going to do this time, if I just put my heat gun onto this, it'll blow away. It would go away. So if I pick it up with my tweezers, where the top blade went, you would knock off some of the embossing powder. So what I often do is just this. I put my tweezers down either side just to hold it still. Okay, here we go. Now, that's fine, it looks fine, but I would get a much smoother, like this, much more rounded, finished sort of look with a second coat. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a second coat. Here we are. Pick it up. Put it onto my scrap. Sprinkle with powder. I learned that wow powders feel that their products are better not put into plastic containers. It makes it go all staticky or something, apparently. So they suggest that you just keep them in what they came in. Right. Do a quick wipe here. It's so quick. The glass mat's wonderful. Okay, here's my tweezers. Just hold it still. Don't even have to touch it. Just hold it out of the way. Now I can see a little bubble just here. I'm just going to prick it and heat it again. Whoops. Oops. I hang my heat tool on one of the knobs of the drawers of my desk. Right, so there is. I'm not too happy actually with this. What I would do in the ordinary way is another coat because it's not very smooth here. So I would just do one more coat and then heat it again. But I'm just for saving time. That's what I would do, just as a matter of interest. I would do exactly the same thing with the sentiment. Heat it, stamp it with Versamark. Sprinkle with gold embossing powder, and when I'm heating it I would hold it just with my tweezers down to the mat so that it can't escape, and then you can just carry on and heat away, no trouble at all. Now the only thing I haven't done to show you is how I did this background here, but it is very similar to what I did there. The first thing I did, however, I'll just use a bit of this for the time being. Is that big enough to go behind? Yes, it is. So I can use this behind my aperture, can't I? First thing I did was get some colour down like this. So using this, just the same colour all through. You don't even have to have the colour showing, you know, right to the edge. You can have variances of colour. It's personal preference, absolutely personal preference, what you fancy. Okay. What I did after that was to do this crackle stamp. This crackle stamp is also from Indigo Blue. I've got that one, which was the French script, and this one, which is crackle, and I love this one. So all I'm going to do with this one is to stamp over the top of that inked background. And the colour comes up much more intensely because a stamped colour is more concentrated ink, whereas it's kind of diffused by the brush. Okay, that was the next thing. What I would do next would be some of this embossed glaze, but won't make the mistake I made before. I'm going to dry this off first before I do that. Distress Oxide is really slow drying, really slow drying. So if you want to do a secondary process like this, you do need to dry it in between. Now I'm going to use this one, my Dabbit. And if you haven't got one of these tools, but you've got like sponge daubers or something like that, you could, you've got a Versamark pad, you could dab your sponge dauber onto your Versamark pad. So that's loaded up, like this sponge is loaded up with ink. Do that and then use that as a dabber. So there are ways around these things. You can do all sorts of different things to get, you know, similar effects. You don't have to have every single tool in the arsenal. Okay, now let's sprinkle on some of this embossing glaze. This has got some cellophane on, didn't realise. Right. Okay. There we are. And the crackle shows through, which is nice. Right. We'll heat this, and we're nearly there with the processes then. I think that's most of the questions answered, actually. Okay, and the last thing that I did to my original card, this one, was add these gold spatters on the top. And the gold spatters on the top, I use this. This is a very old spatter stamp from a Stampin' Up set called Gorgeous Grunge. It was from donkey's years ago, and I use it all the time. So it stays on a block just by my elbow there. So I use it all the time. So now I'm going to ink this. Before I stamp it, I'm just going to rub my anti-static tool just all over this, just so we don't get the gold where we don't want it. That should do. Right, and I think I might need to do 2 of these as well. One there. And turn this round. One there. Okay, back with the scrap. Here's the gold. Looks nice, doesn't it? Oh, I do like a nice bit of gold. Ooh, a nice bit of opulence. Wonderful. Right. Let's just finally heat this. Look at that light up. Yay. Now, looking at that, what I would do again if I was doing this is I would do the stenciling and the stamping after I had done the emboss glazing, because embossing like this, heat embossing with gold, will sit on top of that glaze. So I think it's more vibrant than this one. So all you have to do now is use the smaller of the 2 dies that you used to make your frame to make an aperture in a card panel. Use that to make an aperture. Then, once you've got your front panel aperture cut, your frame will just fit on the front. What have I done with it? Where's the frame gone? I did do one, didn't I? I said I would do. I'm going to do another. Oh, here it is. I'm going to do another layer of this, as I said, because I don't think that is clean enough or smooth enough. There's a few bumps. So I'm going to do another layer of that. So cut your card panel, cut your aperture. This will just fit on the edge of your aperture. And I would use this glue to adhere it. Nuvo Deluxe Clear Drying Craft Glue. Any strong glue like this would work. I would not try and use a glue pen like this. Different kind of glue. I would use white kind of glue. So that will go over. And there you've got a nice aperture with a nice bit of background in, different colour. You could use it this way, whatever way you want. So I will carry on and I will complete this one. And I'll pop the finished card onto my Instagram page, Chrissy Job, and also onto my Facebook page, CAS with friends, Christine and Stokes. Have a lovely day and thanks for watching.